Okay, so laughter, yeah, so important. Just thinking about it really is contagious, though, right? Like sometimes you ever like go somewhere and you hear someone's laugh, and it just like makes you laugh. So 6 months ago, I was listening to a podcast on Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul Sunday. She's one of my favorite teachers, and I listen to her podcasts very often. And she had a journalist on her program named Sebastian Junger, and he wrote a book called The Quest for Tribe. The book, The Quest for Tribe, was inspired by a documentary that he created called War. And it was based on his experience as a journalist covering different wars around the world. So Sebastian did an outpost in eastern Afghanistan, and he was placed with a platoon of soldiers. And he discovered that despite the devastation of war, the poor living conditions, how unsafe it is, how there's little food, the soldiers were really, really reluctant to return to America. And I'm sure that you guys have heard of this, but it's really common to hear of soldiers coming back from war and experiencing like post-traumatic stress, depression, suicide, and feeling very isolated. The thing is that these soldiers are living in platoons, and they're living in very, very close quarters. So they're sleeping shoulder to shoulder. Their life is really dependent on the rest of the platoon, so they depend on each other for survival. They're also depending on each other for protection, right? So there's this sense of like community, of camaraderie with their platoon. And what was interesting is that despite the hi Shabby, despite the advantages of modern society that were like awaiting them back in America, they missed the feeling of being connected and the aspect of collaboration that they experienced when they were at war. So modern society has many benefits, as we know, because we all live in a very modern society. Canada is an amazing country. It offers many conveniences. It's safe. There's a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of choices here. Most of us are quite affluent, and there's a lot of freedom, and we have access to absolutely everything, especially being in Canada. We can get food that is not even in season, that is grown somewhere around the world, and at our fingertips we can get any information that we need, yeah? So all of this is quite the blessing. However, there's a flip side to all of that. And the flip side is that we live in really large communities, and we don't even know our neighbors. So most of you are probably meeting each other for the very first time, but have probably had a shower next to each other in the change room, or sweat next to each other, and even had someone sweat on your body in class. We don't need anything, okay? So, and not needing anything, so like we don't need a cup of sugar because we could go to Rabba that's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We don't need anyone either. So it's not like the olden days when the stores were closed on Sundays and we had to borrow something from our neighbor. All of that said, so all of those advantages means that a lot of people are actually living in isolation, right? A lot of people are feeling very, very lonely and feeling very disconnected from community and pretty depressed. So though modern society is a blessing in many ways, it also is a tragedy. And the tragedy is that we've lost the core sense of who we are. Studies have shown that an increase in wealth equals increase in suicide and depression. That's pretty interesting, yeah? Studies also show that wealth does not equal psychological health. Global studies on women with the highest percentage of depression showed that the most depressed women globally were affluent, urban North American women. And the women with the least percentage of depression were rural Nigerian women. So Affluent North American women have this blessing of modern society that we just talked about. But despite living in dangerous conditions and in poverty, as many of these women in Nigeria live in, the rural Nigerian women live in communities. And this impacts their psychological well-being tremendously. So if we take a look at human history, historically we lived in small tribes and small communities that were about 40 to 60 people. And we knew each other very, very well. So it wasn't just our parents, but it was our extended family and then other people within the community. And we really relied on each other for our survival. We hunted together and we shared food and we looked out for each other for our safety and protection. It's really similar if we just look at like that story that I told you about Sebastian and the platoon. So it's that same idea of living in close quarters and relying on each other. Humans cannot survive alone in nature, neither physically or psychologically. Connection is what sustains us, and we are wired for collaboration. So Sebastian covered the Bosnian War in Sarajevo back in the 90s, and he returned 20 years later to do an interview. When he arrived, he saw this graffiti on the wall that said, "Things were better when they were bad." I'm going to say that again. Things were better when they were bad. And the irony in that is that people were missing the war. Studies show that the worse that things are in society, the better people act. And despite the devastation of war, people lived in small communities during the war. And again, they relied on each other for safety. They shared food. They helped each other. They invited people into their homes to sleep. And they were quite generous with each other. And what they noticed is that when the war ended and stability and affluence returned, people lost that generosity of spirit. And they began thinking on an individual level once again. So what we find is that when modern society collapses, so if we look at examples like 9/11 or Katrina or other devastating things that happen in modern society, the stats show that depression doesn't actually increase, but that human beings rise and take action. And we see that, yeah? So during those devastating times, like in the news, you'll see people going out and like not sleeping for like 48 hours trying to rescue people, and like, you know, people like lifting cars off of babies and these like superhuman, miraculous things. And when I use the word miracle, I'm talking about a phenomenon that can't be explained, yeah? So this thing where suddenly like you don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, you don't need anything, and suddenly we're like rising to like help protect each other and survive. We become activated. So catastrophe brings out the best in human beings, which is really interesting. It's a function of our evolutionary past, and it makes us feel good to connect. So this podcast that I listened to got me thinking, and I was driving, and I was thinking, I was so touched, and I was so moved, and I was thinking about many things. And one of the things that it made me think about was my teacher training that I mentioned earlier. 8 years ago, I went to India. Moksha was offering a teacher training there, and I was laid off from my job. And it was a really devastating time for me. And I was really isolated. And for the first time in a long time, I felt really lost. And I had a ton of family supporting me because I'm really, really blessed that way. But I was like, I'm going to India. I'd always wanted to learn more about yoga, and I knew that I needed to go to the source. And India is the source of the history of yoga. That is where yoga was born. And so I went to India, and for 30 days, I was in this really rural country. For those of you that have ever been to India, know what I'm talking about. And I met 60 strangers that I had never met before. So I'm not sure how many people are sitting here right now, but on the first day of training, we sit in a circle just like this. And nobody knows each other, nobody knows each other's name, and you look around and without even knowing each other, you're already like, you see that person, you already start judging them, and you're like, oh, that's the person that's going to be like this. And, you know, we have all these like things that disconnect us, like, oh, I would never have anything in common with that person because we have all these isms, like ageism, sexism, racism, all these isms, right? And so at the beginning of the 30 days of my training, there was this massive disconnection where it was like, oh, you're sitting a little close to me. And, you know, I was like, oh, these people. And you think that we practice close to each other. Well, there's actually like no room between the mats of teacher training. my point is that it got me thinking about my training, because at the beginning of the 30 days, I met 60 strangers, and by the end of it, I found my Sangha. And Sangha is the Sanskrit word for family, for community. And what was amazing about this experience was that at the end of the 30 days, most of us left with tremendous sadness. We felt very, very depressed and had so much anxiety about returning back to modern society, to our comfortable beds, to hot showers, to clean clothes, to a fridge that has a ton of food in it. And yet we were so anxious about returning home, and we had this like nostalgia for our Sangha. And the reason is because we practiced mat to mat 2 times a day for 30 days. We slept dorm style, very, very close to each other. We cried together when things got hard or we missed our families back home. We massaged each other's shoulders and legs when our bodies got tired from doing so much yoga. We helped each other with homework and to hang our laundry on the line on our days off. We picked up supplies for each other when going into town. We shared our peanut butter and chocolate with each other, which was a really, really hot commodity. And we painted each other's nails and had dance parties on our days off. Returning back to modern society for many of us felt very, very isolating. And we had this tremendous longing for Sangha. So despite all of these blessings, again, there's something that this thing does for us, yeah? The podcast also got me thinking about something else. So this drive was a really like emotional drive for me, and I started to think about this community, this Sangha. The teachers and the energy exchange team and the staff that work here, we all have one group chat on our phones, on like WhatsApp. And this is how we primarily communicate with each other, but this chat is not just for communicating updates and stuff like that. We use this chat to communicate things that we're celebrating. So when someone has a baby, we celebrate with each other, and we're like, here's a picture of my new baby, and we're all like, yeah, welcome to the world, and you know, milestones, like I just came back from my teacher training, and we're so proud of you, or you know, it's someone's birthday, and we celebrate each other's birthday on there, yeah. But we also use this chat when life brings us down to our knees. When Kama and Ali's father had a heart attack, and they went onto the chat and they're like, guys, my father just had a heart attack, and can you say a prayer, please? And so we come together and we offer our collective prayers for each other and for our family members. My sister 3 years ago delivered her baby at 24 weeks. So for those of you that are not up to date with how many weeks babies need to be baked for, they're baked for 40 weeks. Andreas was born at 24 weeks, and we were horrified. We really did not know what was going to happen. And so instantly I went on to our chat, and within seconds, people were pouring prayers out for my nephew that they hadn't even met before. When Kama got into a car accident, everybody was praying that she was going to be okay. When Joy's mother and sister passed away, within like a couple of months of each other, we came together and prayed, and it was really, really powerful. Because when we come together and we offer our prayer, and I'm just going to pause for a sec, the word prayer I'm using because it's a word that resonates for me. I was raised Catholic, and we prayed from young, and prayer was a huge part of my upbringing. Different cultures and different religions have different words for this word. It can be actually sitting in silence. It could be dancing. It could be singing. It could be repeating a mantra. It's many different things. So I just want to make sure that you're not put off by this word. Yoga is not a religious practice, but I'm just using the word because that's how I identify with it. So you want to go with your own definition. But this power of practice, of praying together, is really miraculous. So again, going back to the word miracle, which is like this phenomenon that cannot be explained, but something really powerful happens. So it got me thinking about Sangha, and how when we come to our knees, when life brings us to our knees, the Sangha lifts us up. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Zen Buddhist monk, and he's one of my teachers as well. Thich Nhat Hanh says that we need to let Sangha, community, carry us. We need to release our suffering to Sangha so that they can carry us. He uses the analogy of like getting into a boat when you're suffering, you know. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I think you do, because we're all the same. You know, when something like just literally you feel like you can't get up, you can't see the light of day, and you just don't know how you're going to make it out of a devastating situation, and you just can't find the courage, that you get into the boat and you let the Sangha row you to wherever it is that you need to go, and you can rest until you're ready and let the Sangha carry you. And it's amazing because many of us can relate to this, that when we cross the threshold of the front door here, doesn't matter what we're going through in our life, as long as we share, and it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to share what it is that we're carrying, because we know when we start to know each other, and it's like we can tell when something's off, you know? When we come in and it's like, yeah, this really, like, I'm dealing with this, I just lost somebody in my life, you know? And you don't need to say anything else, the Sangha carries you. And suddenly you walk through the door, you don't need to say anything, and just a smile, a text message, a hug can literally carry you through the day, yeah? Dick says that we need to turn to each other. And so ultimately, all of this got me thinking about how much I wanted to share this with all of you guys, the students and members of this community. And I thought, how can I do this? Maybe I'm gonna like offer some kind of a workshop or some event to share this like really powerful knowledge of Sangha, which is one of Moksha's 7 pillars, is Sangha support. And Grow Your Yoga was approaching, and just like everything lines up when you allow it to, when you stop trying to control everything and you don't overthink it. It was approaching, and I reviewed the details of this year's campaign. It's a global international campaign amongst all the Moksha and Moto studios. So there's about almost 80 studios across the world. And so we come together and we commit to sharing one fundraising campaign where we raise awareness and money for an organization that is aligned with our pillars. And when I read the breakdown of the campaign, I had this aha moment, as Oprah likes to say, and I knew that Grow Your Yoga would be the perfect opportunity to share this with you guys. So this year's campaign is supporting the David Suzuki Foundation, who's a legend in Canada and for many, many years has been helping to protect Mother Earth through science, awareness, and action. So trees, just like us, they need each other, and they exist in communities. And like the very forests that sustain our planet, we, the students, the teachers, the energy exchangers, and the staff within the studio make up community. Trees clean the air that we breathe and the water that we drink, and they stabilize our climate and help provide habitat for biodiversity. So our goal this year is to celebrate community. So this is where it tied in. We're supporting both social and ecological community by highlighting our Live Green pillar, so we're planting trees, and our community support pillar, our Sangha support pillar. So by coming together for a 30-day challenge, there's a massive impact that this has, both ecologically, socially, on a community level, on a Sangha level, on a heart level, on a physical level. And for every single dollar that we raise, the David Suzuki Foundation will be planting 1 tree. The larger the community of trees, the stronger that they are, and the more that they're protected against their surroundings, yeah? So the harsh conditions, like there's supposed to be some really crazy windstorm coming. So through really, really harsh conditions, when trees are planted close together and there's a ton of them, they're actually really, really strong and very resilient. Does anybody know why that is? Don't be shy. Exactly. Exactly. So the more trees, the closer together, the more that their roots intertwine, which makes them stronger, more rooted to the earth, and more protected. And that is really just like us. And the more that we come together as Sangha, the more that we connect with each other, the stronger we are. When the conditions of life can be harsh and full of adversities, yeah? So I want to share some details about Grow Your Yoga, and then we're going to pull it together, yeah? So, Grow Your Yoga is a 30-day fundraising challenge, okay? And it's for everybody. So sometimes people are like, oh, I can't commit, I can't do this, I can't do yoga for 30 days, but you can, because it's all in the name, Grow Your Yoga. And most of us, I was mentioning this in class last night, most of us found yoga through the physical postures of yoga, yeah? We either saw it somewhere, the gym was offering it, or the doctors now, which is amazing, are like, oh, you should really do yoga, it's really good for you. The physical practice of yoga is amazing because it helps to strengthen our physical body, and it helps to strengthen our spine. So as we know, as we get older, our bodies start to get a little bit more stiff, our muscles can weaken, which impacts our physical health. And our physical bodies are important because these are the bodies that carry us through life. So the stronger that we can get our bodies through physical activity and food, the more pleasant our experience is going to be in life. Now, we're all going to die no matter what we eat, how many cigarettes we smoke, and how many glasses of wine we drink. At some point, the breath is going to stop flowing. But while we are here, we can take action to sustain our bodies. But the practice of yoga is not just a physical practice. There's 8 limbs that the philosopher or the sage Patanjali laid out the yoga philosophy as. 8 different limbs of yoga. The very first of 8 limbs of yoga is a part of a cluster of practices called yamas. Yamas are like your moral ethics, your moral code in life. Okay? And the first yama is ahimsa. And ahimsa means non-violence, non-harm, not killing. So for some of us, we choose to not eat animals. For some of us, that's not going to work, and that's okay. But just because you eat animals, it doesn't mean that you can't practice ahimsa, because ahimsa is practicing not harming. So that includes not being mean to people, not being so judgmental to people, and taking away, like killing their experience in life. Not harming means not being so judgmental of yourself and like all that negative self-talk about how you're not good enough or comparing yourself to people on Instagram and their lives. So ahimsa is a really tremendous practice of yoga that's probably a lot harder than showing up for 60 minutes and going through a flow class, yeah? So that's what Grow Your Yoga is. It's the practice of exploring all the limbs of yoga. And so what we do over the course of 30 days is we invite you to take the physical challenge. Like myself, I got really sick this winter, and so I had to pull away from my physical practice. And my body's really sore and really tight. And so I'm really excited to start my physical practice again and like just recommitting to trying to practice every single day for 30 days. Yeah. And a physical yoga practice doesn't need to be 60 minutes. Like, you don't have to come to the yoga studio. If you know how to do the sun salutations, you can even just do 5 minutes of sun salutations in the morning, and that's a yoga practice. But a yoga practice is more than that, yeah? So what we do is we encourage you to practice every single day for 30 days, whether it be physical, but we give you a bingo card for the challenge with 30 different challenges in it, and none of them are physical. The challenges are introduce yourself to a challenger and practice together. Journal about 3 things that you're grateful for today. Smile and say hi to a stranger. If you see a piece of trash on the ground, pick it up and dispose of it in the garbage. Turn off your water when you're brushing your teeth. Yeah. So there's a ton of really accessible challenges for you to participate over the 30 days in a fun game of bingo. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can win a prize. So for those of you that are little, have that competitive edge, there are prizes. But it's pretty straightforward. And so we just ask a couple of things with regards to the bingo challenge, is that you only stamp 1 challenge per day, because the idea is cultivating a sustainable, regular, daily yoga practice. So just watch that competitive edge, yeah? Because the point is that yoga is a practice every day for the rest of your life. So if you're just trying to rush to get all of these stamped, then you're kind of missing out on the sustainable practice of yoga, which is little things done every day over the course of your life. There are bonus points, so just in case one day you don't get around to doing a challenge, there are a couple of things that offer bonus points, so you can do a second stamp, okay? But we also have these bandanas that Pearl scoured Mississauga for because it's trees, so we're wearing green. And St. Patrick's Day was a couple of weeks ago, and so we found them. So thanks, Pearl, for finding them. So the bandanas are yours to wear for 30 days when you are practicing in studio, and you can wear them anywhere. You can get really fancy around your ankle, your wrist, your forehead, your neck, whatever, so that we can identify our Sangha, the people that are participating in Grow Your Yoga, so that it makes it easier to sit next to each other and be like, hey, how's your day? How's your challenge going? And to connect, yeah? So it's a 30-day on and off the mat yoga challenge. It's $1 a day to participate. And as we said, for every dollar we raise, the David Suzuki Foundation will plant a tree. So our studio goal is to raise $2,500. I think that when I checked today, we were at 1,200? We're halfway. We're about halfway there, yeah? And so the beautiful thing is that even if people don't join today at the beginning of the 30 days, they can join anytime throughout the challenge. You can invite friends to participate or just make a donation and say, hey, we're doing this fundraiser at our yoga studio, you want to make a donation, and they can. But there's other ways that people and yourselves can get involved if you don't register for the 30 days. We've got a little donation bin, and you can just drop $1 in there if you have extra change in your pocket. We've got amazing workshops going on this month that your donation gives you access to. So when you donate to participate, you get access to all of the events. I'm just going to go over them right now for you. So this coming Saturday, I'm teaching a sun salutation workshop, which is amazing because we do moksha flow, and it involves the Surya Namaskar, and it's a very challenging series of poses. And I remember I was doing them for 10 years, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I was never building strength. And then finally, when I found out how to do it properly, it was game changer. Yeah. So the Surya Namaskar workshop this coming Saturday, which is a $25 value. So people can come to that even if they don't want to do the challenge. The following weekend, me and Matthew Bonus, who's a member here at the studio, he's a teacher as well, we're doing an intro to acro yoga workshop, which is really fun. And if you're really scared, it's for you, especially because you're scared. Then we've got a movie night. We're screening the documentary called Yoga Unveiled, and it shows a history of yoga. So really cool if you want to learn and grow your yoga practice and understand the history of yoga. And then we have our Cinco de Mayo finale fundraising fiesta. That's so many F words. Fundraising finale fiesta. And so it's last year the party fell on Cinco de Mayo, which is a Mexican fiesta. So we were yeah, let's just go with it, a fun Mexican fiesta. So it's really, really fun. That's $10 to come to, but you guys get in for free. And at that night there's a market, and there's tacos, and there's coronitas, and maybe a mariachi band and a DJ, and it's just a really, really fun night at the end of the challenge to celebrate with all of the new friends that you made, and you can bring friends as well. So it's a really fun challenge, and it's so funny because I haven't seen Marianne in a while, and she's like, oh, I'm here, this was the perfect opportunity, and it really is, yeah, because winter is this time of isolation, hibernation, we don't even want to leave our houses, and we feel so sluggish and demotivated, and spring is a time of coming back to life. So it's a wonderful time to start a new habit that is nourishing for us and inspiring us once again, and again connecting as a community. So I just want to make sure that I have just a sec, but I want to tie this all together, okay? One of the limbs of yoga is svadhyaya. Again, a Sanskrit word that means self-study. And most of us come to yoga to get to know ourselves better, right? It's a very independent practice. We come to the studio, we leave our shoes behind, we leave our day behind, and we come to our mat, and we get to know our breath, and we get to know our sorrow, and we get to know our strengths, and we get to know parts of ourselves that we didn't even know. And that's the amazing part about this practice. And I understand that, and I honor that. But as I said, there's a tremendous amount of power when we come together as a community, as a Sangha. And there's that miracle aspect to it. So I know for some of you, you might feel like you're these labels, introverted or shy. And I know how hard it can be to share your heart. The word courage comes from the Latin word heart, and it means to tell your story with all of your heart. It takes a lot of courage to tell your story. But through our practice, we try to embody courage, to share parts of ourselves, because that's how we can engage in intimacy with each other. And intimacy is one of the most beautiful things ever. So I just want to say that I know that some of you might feel like, oh no, like I could never say, hey, what's your name? How's your challenge going? Want to practice next to me? Or whatever it is, yeah? I know that that's really hard. Trust me, it takes a lot of vulnerability to sit up here and be courageous and share my heart with you too. But sometimes we just need to take a leap of faith, and we're usually really inspired by what unfolds for us on our path. So I would love to open for questions in just a sec, but before we do, I'm going to invite you guys to turn to one person next to you, so nobody can be left out. So you have to turn to someone, but then the person next to them has to make sure that they're facing somebody too, okay? And we're going to turn to each other. And as I mentioned, the chat that we share here with the team that works at the studio, we share what we're celebrating, but we also share something that we're really struggling with right now in our life. And maybe it's a daughter that's a little lost, someone in our life, you know, a loved one that's lost, a loved one that's sick. Maybe it's ourselves. Maybe we've just lost somebody. Maybe there's some financial struggle. Maybe there is an elderly parent that we're taking care of. All of us have our stuff. We are no different. All of us have things to celebrate and things that cause suffering. So I'm asking you to be courageous and to turn to the person next to you and just share something that you are celebrating right now in your life. And it could just be, if you're like, oh gosh, I'm so nervous, I can't even think of something. It could just be like, I'm celebrating being alive right now or being here right now, yeah? And share something that you are, and I'm going to use the word praying for. You can choose whatever word resonates for you. Something that you're asking for some clarity around, something you're trying to like surrender and bring some peace to, whatever it is for you. To have the courage to share that with the person next to you, okay? But when you do it, you can't just be like, hey, Adam, I'm sharing, So what we need to do, yeah, because that's not heart to heart, right? So we need to turn to each other, whatever distance you're comfortable with, and just be like, okay, just to recap, your name is Adam. Okay, I knew that. Okay, and then we share, okay? And we're not going to do it like in the whole circle. Maybe we'll do that another time, but just with the person next to you, okay? Yeah? Okay, let's do that. And then maybe if you guys are feeling really courageous, you even give each other a hug. But if you're not, you can just be like, you can just give them like a little, like a handshake. So, because I respect that everyone has a different comfort zone, yeah? But maybe just a namaste, if you're not even, okay? And you can laugh after, okay? So you guys are doing the math, right? So everybody make sure you have someone. Take a sip.
Gotta hit it. There you go.
I would think like by now you've already mastered the jiu-jitsu of the vegetarian conversation. No?
This bowl was a gift from Teresa Holleran, who was a teacher here from when we first opened the studio, and she retired almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. And Teresa's an amazing woman, an amazing yoga teacher, and she gifted this Tibetan bowl to us, which was a gift for the Sangha. And for the sound healing for the Sangha. So it was just appropriate to share that with you. And you must see it at the front of the room whenever we practice, and it's not often used, but it was an offering to our Sangha. So it was beautiful. Adam and I was like, I think I was being really modest with like my sharing, and I was like, okay, trying to keep it like concise, and then we looked around and we were just like looking at all of you, and everyone was like smiling and sharing and crying. And I'm just going to share one more story with you, and then we're gonna close our circle. But like I said, I was raised Roman Catholic, and my mother our family went through a very, very devastating time when my parents got divorced. I was really young, and I remember my mom, she was a part of these prayer groups, and so every week they would get together in somebody's living room, and they would have tea, and they would sit together, and everybody would offer the prayer group, the session, the sit, to somebody in their life or a circumstance in their life that they were praying for. So maybe it's like, healing from this pain of the divorce. Somebody's child was dying. Somebody's mother was passing. Somebody's little baby was sick. It goes on, yeah? And so everybody would share, and then we would recite the rosary. The rosary is this string of beads with all these different prayers or mantras, or however you want to refer to it, but and we would sit. And so I remember this one time, and sometimes like I would go with her, and this one time she had it at our house, and me and my two girlfriends attended, and so we sat in, and there were all these like older people, because we were like 11 or something, and we sat in, and they were all praying, and I don't even remember what I was probably praying for, like the boy at school to like me or something. And everyone had these like, adult stuff that they were praying for. And I just remember, we sat with them and we prayed. And after it was done, the three of us went outside onto the lawn, and it was a really beautiful like summer night. And so we were like laying on the lawn, and like we felt this giddiness that we couldn't understand. And we were like, do you feel that? Did you feel that? And like we just kept like looking at each other and laughing, like the way we were laughing before, but it was like this hysterical, uncontrollable laughter that we were like, I think this is what it feels like when you're on drugs. And so we couldn't understand what it was, but we literally felt, and we started like running like down the street and back, and it was like we were wild, like we had all of this energy, and we had no idea what it was about. And but we felt like there was some magic, like there was obviously this like magic thing that happened when we were in that circle, because we left and we felt like we could like run cross country and like, and so that's what this reminded me of, is in the sharing, in the power of Sangha, there's this energy that comes, there's this healing that comes, there's this faithfulness, and it's the carrying of our sorrows, of our sufferings, and we can leave it with each other. And we go home and we keep those prayers of each other in our hearts, and what it is that we just shared with each other courageously in our hearts. Yeah? So let's, Prilly, do you mind closing the door? Before we close the circle, I just wonder if anybody has any questions about the 30-day challenge. We've got a few more minutes, so if you have any questions, please don't be shy to ask. Anna.
I was wondering, so let's say you're not a member of the Monaco Studio, right, and they partake in the challenge. Would they only have the workshops available to them?
Okay, that's a great question. So anyone that wants to practice the physical practice for 30 days and is not on an all-you-can-sweat membership, like most of you are, there's a promotion on membership until the end of date today for 30 days. So on a 1 month unlimited, right? So that just gives them, it makes it more accessible for them to practice for the 30 days. But then there's the $30 donation, which is what covers the cost of all of the events, et cetera, et cetera. Did that make sense? So if somebody wants to maybe just make a donation to participate in the challenge, but not the physical challenge, they could make a $30 donation. But if they wanted to participate in the yoga, they would have to make sure that they have a membership to pay for yoga.
Right.
Did
so
that?
They can't do the workshops.
Okay. Yes. Sorry, I missed that part. Or they could just attend the workshop. So if they're like, no, I don't really want to like participate in this whole thing, but acro yoga sounds really fun, I'm going to go to the acro yoga workshop. But the acro yoga workshop's $35. So if they actually just made a $30 donation, then they could be a part of the whole thing. So, but it's optional. If they want to just come to the movie night, they could pay $8. It's a donation of $8. If they wanted to come to any one of the things, they could. Does that answer the question? Awesome. Anybody else?
Just to follow up, I'm not sure if this is kind of what you're asking as well. So if my friend, who's not a member of the studio at all, wants to take one of the workshops.
Yeah, bring them along and they can just pay for the workshop. Yeah, and since we're talking about workshops, I want to emphasize this because the workshops are open to all challengers and non-challengers, and you want to make sure that you pre-register for it. And if you change your mind, please take yourself out of class so that there's room for other people. We're not like we're going to keep it pretty big for the workshop, so they might be really like you might be really close to someone, but we know that that's old news being bothered by that stuff. Anybody else?
So I saw there was a chart of sorts.
Yeah, good question.
Between the two ones.
Yeah. Okay, so two things, right? So you can take your bingo card with you, or you can keep it at the studio. So we have two options. You can keep it with you, but sometimes some of us aren't so good at keeping things in safe places. But you can, because everything that's on here is like outside of studio related stuff, with the exception of a couple things. But if you want to keep it in the studio, we have a filing system. So this is for you to keep track of all of the different challenges. The board up on the main community chalkboard between the change rooms is for you to keep track of your daily challenge. So your name is up there, and every single day you can put a little stamp up there just to help you keep track of every day. And just like little kids, when they're learning how to go pee in the toilet, the little stickers get them really encouraged to keep coming back. So the chart is to keep us coming back, yeah? Anyone else?
Okay, so the challenge is just the physical yoga and then the bingo board.
Yeah. So and it could be a combination of all, right? So if you can't make it to a physical practice one day, there's so many other ways that you can still practice yoga.
So does that mean you can still, if you do something else,
Yep.
you can still mark it off on
Exactly.
that board?
Yep.
Does this start today?
It starts today, and this counts as a class because this is yoga. And so, but I know some of you guys are wanting to stretch your body, so you're welcome to stay for the next class. But this is the first class. This is the first part of your challenge. Making it here, and there's a stamp for that too. Yeah, Adam did these, so thank you, Adam. Anyone else? Speak now, or you could just ask me later.
Can you tell me a comment for practicing the event? So do we just put the stickers there or like for the actual yoga class, or does it matter which class are we playing, or I don't?
Yep, anytime. Yeah. The teacher takeover, which is the last Saturday, that will be busy because it's open to everybody. It's on a regular Saturday, so make sure you pre-register for that. That one we're going to probably keep true to capacity.
I noticed something last night with Christina. I don't know if it got fixed, but like apparently if I'm on this 30-day thing right now, mode in the system, I try to pre-register for stuff and it's not letting me. And
Okay.
They said it's like a developer issue that you guys have to figure out.
Okay. Pearly?
Yeah, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
Pearl. I try to schedule for stuff like Thursday or past that, and they won't let me right now. And Christina said that's the reason why. So.
Yeah. And if you haven't met Pearl, she's the studio manager and also spends many hours of her day online with our point of sale software team trying to fix things all the time. Thank you, Pearl. Maureen.
I'm on it. Okay. So when I try to register for something beyond my actual day that the payment gets made, it says I owe a different number.
Okay.
So like today when I tried to register, he made like I owed 300 and some odd.
Okay. So what do you think, Pearly?
Yeah, I know.
I'll fix it right after this.
So by tomorrow, like what should we say that maybe by the next couple of days? What do you think?
Tonight.
So let's say by morning. By morning, yeah? Okay, cool. So let's take one more question if there is a question, and then we'll close our circle. Anyone else? Okay, so let's sit up tall and close our eyes. And feel the earth supporting you below you. And just like the trees on this planet that sustain and nourish us, all these bodies sitting next to us in a circle, strengthening, supporting us. Just like trees give us oxygen, which sustains our spirit, our life, we give each other a form of oxygen too, a form of energy that is like a phenomenon that supports and nourishes us as well. Grow tall through your spine and humble your chin to your heart. Notice your breath. Expanding on your inhale in your belly, your ribs up into your chest, and contracting with every exhale. And bring your hands together to your heart. Namaskar Mudra, with this gesture of gratitude. Just take a moment to connect with your heart center and connect with your intention, what you're celebrating, what you're praying for. Your intention for this challenge, what it is that you're trying to embody, your intention for embodiment over the next 30 days. And then connect with the heart of the person or persons that shared their hearts with you, and hold their intention in your heart as well. Praying for what it is that they're celebrating and what it is that they are trying to cultivate in their life. And take a big breath in. And let it go. And I just want to thank each of you for being here tonight, for the seed of wanting to grow your yoga, and for wanting to water that seed, and really for wanting to grow yourself, because that's what this practice is about. Thank you for sharing courageously. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, guys. So I think there's a bunch of people that want to do yoga out there. So let's just gather our stuff. And if you are wanting to stay for class,